Woodside Chairman Richard Goyder is under pressure to retain his board seat when his position is put up to vote at tomorrow's annual general meeting. The oil and gas giant's climate plan is also expected to receive a heavy protest vote. Australia's second largest super fund, Aware Super, owns about 1% of the shares in Woodside and is voting against Mr Goyder and the climate strategy. I caught up with Aware Super's Chief Investment Officer Damien a little earlier, who was in Melbourne speaking about his fund's build-to-rent housing portfolio.
We have about a little over 1% of Woodside shares on issue, and the reason for us voting against the re-election of the chair has really been driven by a long-term engagement with the company. We've been engaging with them for a number of years around their climate transition and the plans they need to have in place, and we just feel that they haven't made as much progress as they should. And so we feel like the accountability does stop with the chair, and so we've chosen to vote against it. It hasn't been an easy decision, but it's one that we've taken after a long-term engagement and a lot of thinking.
Do you think Richard Goyder has been in the chairman's position at Woodside for too long?
Our decision hasn't been driven by his tenure as the chair, but it is impactful. He's obviously been with the organisation for a number of years now on the board, and so we do believe that he's had time to help affect change.
Woodside's now saying they've secured the early votes to re-elect him. Do you believe those claims?
Oh, look, I couldn't really comment on whether the vote will be successful or not for him to be re-elected. We don't have that information, and it may be the case or not, but we just don't have that information.
And what about remuneration? Do you expect the REM report will get up?
Yeah, it's a good question. Again, we believe that it probably will in general terms, but again, we don't have that detail either.
Just explain why you're also voting against the company's climate plan.
Yeah, the climate plan we just don't believe has gone far enough across the number of things that we believe are important. So not just on scope 1 and 2, but obviously we want the company to start to consider how they will support the transition for scope 3 as well. So we do think that's an important component. Not an easy one, but we do believe they need to make more progress on that.
ASIC today is warning companies to start preparing for its mandatory climate disclosure regime. Do you see this causing problems for Woodside?
Look, I don't think that will necessarily cause them problems or other larger companies. We do believe it's been pretty well flagged. Obviously, the phase 1 implementation has been pushed back by 6 months, so our general engagement suggests that most of the larger companies that will be impacted have been considering this for a while, and they're fairly well advanced.
Do any ASX-listed companies stand out as ones which have in place a good climate plan?
It's a really good question. I think a number of the larger organisations certainly are well advanced, and we do believe that they're thoughtful about it. Again, I won't name particular companies, but we do see a number of larger companies that are well advanced in their planning.
You're at a sod-turning ceremony today for a build-to-rent development in Victoria. Why is Aware Super supporting build-to-rent projects like this one?
Yeah, so our approach to building new build-to-rent apartments has been a long-dated one. We felt that there's a strong opportunity for members to generate a good return by investing in living assets. And so over the last 5 years or so, we've been bringing new apartments to market. This will be our 12th, effectively, different site or different asset. We have 10 operating, and we've got 2 today that we've launched in Melbourne. More than 700 apartments across those 2 sites. And we're committing about $300 million across these 2 sites in equity investment. And that brings to our commitment to a little over $1.5 billion or so, because we believe there's a great opportunity for us to keep building new build-to-rent apartments. There's a strong desire, strong need for them, so the supply-demand certainly highlights that there's strong demand for new apartments. The vacancy rate around this area is less than 1%, so we know from a supply-demand perspective it's an incredibly important thing. We also believe it's important from a community perspective. So we can generate good long-term returns, but we can also do it in areas that we can have a positive community outcome by bringing good housing stock to market and affect the long-term affordability of housing in regions such as Preston, where we are today.
Are you hoping that this development's going to help with the government's housing accord targets?
Primarily, this investment is like most of all the other investments, where it is driven by the long-term return opportunity. But we do also see the need to keep building housing across the country. We know most states are struggling to do that, and Victoria has flagged that they're also struggling to meet their targets. So naturally this will make a contribution, but we can't do it alone, and we believe there's a strong need for all investors to think about this opportunity, and also governments to support with the right policy settings.
And what sort of return do you get on an asset like this?
Yeah, so returns for here, I won't be too specific, but importantly it meets our targets for our property portfolio. So we have a return target for our return portfolio of inflation plus 5% at least. And pleasingly this type of development meets that return target. So it's a good thing for our members for long-term outcomes. We believe the demand for these types of assets are really strong, so we believe that's a good long-term return for them.
And finally, how many apartments does Aware Super own now in its portfolio?
Well, our portfolio is building to around 2,000, and in the next couple of years we'll have sort of that number operating, so it's a really pleasing portfolio for us. It'll be across a number of different individual sites, so more than a dozen, and we're operating that across major states, certainly New South Wales, Victoria, Western Australia and also in the ACT. So it's a reasonably diversified portfolio, which we think is also important, but more than 2,000 apartments.
Damien Graham, Chief Investment Officer at Aware Super, thanks for your time today.
Thank you.